before they fulfill their desires, set to waste of existence.
Anxious earth is rising.
Spend our life searching for the sense of belonging. Some people die before they fulfill their desires, such a waste of existence.
All right, we're starting this show in just a few minutes here. Thank you for joining.
We spend our life searching for the sense of belonging. Some people die before they fulfill their desires, such a waste of existence. Such a waste of existence. We spend our life searching for the sense of belonging. Some people die before they fulfill their desires. Such a waste of existence. Such a waste of existence.
The sun is shining and the anxious earth is rising. I'm so happy.
We spend our life searching for the sense of belonging. Some people die before they fulfill their desires.
Hey, I made it. Sorry, 50. I got this thing going 15 minutes late here. Sorry about that. This is my first official real live stream on YouTube as Double Tribble. I kind of messed up. Turns out you got to click the button that says go live. Who knew? All right, so we made it anyway. I did a test stream the other day, and everything seemed okay, but I got to the real thing, and of course, you know, everything goes wrong. But I'm here, and I'm going to do a test here real quick just to see if my audio is in sync. So if you can stand by another 30 seconds here while I check this out, I want to see if my voice is matching my mouth movements here. So hang on just a second. Okay, looks like the audio is just a little bit delayed, so I'm going to see if I can tweak that here a little bit. I'm not sure which way to move this. It says offset, but it doesn't say if it's delayed or not. All right, let's see. All right, let's test this. 1, 2, 3. All right, we'll see if that is in sync or not. Thank you for standing by here. Well, that looked. Is that close? I don't know. I'm gonna test this one more time here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Unfortunately, YouTube has like a 30-second delay, so I got to wait 30 seconds to see how this is actually coming across on the stream. Sorry about the technical difficulties here, guys. All right, you know, that's close enough. All right, that's close enough. All right, we're out there. We're live. We're almost in sync. Welcome to the YouTube channel, Double Tribble channel on YouTube. My name is Ron. I live in rural New Hampshire. Got animals all over the place, and I like to stream about science and animals and film. I'm vegan, so sometimes I talk about that. I got social dyslexia, so you probably noticed that after a while, after watching me stream here. Maybe you've noticed it already. And so I'm, part of the NeuroD community. We're an inclusive group here, so I don't care who you are, as long as you're nice, you're welcome. Let's see here. All right, so last night I did a stream on Twitch. At some point I want to figure out how to do streaming both on Twitch and YouTube at the same time. But for now, I'm just gonna stream mostly on YouTube. I've been a Twitch streamer for a couple months, and anyway, I'm switching over to YouTube because they don't like people like me over there. So. And they don't like people who talk about politics over there. They don't like people who talk about civics. So hopefully YouTube isn't like that. Hopefully YouTube is more welcoming about that stuff. So we're gonna talk about this film that Harold Lloyd did. It was his first talkie. It's called Welcome Danger, and it was first shown in 1929. And it was his first talkie. So he did a whole bunch of silent films before that, but this was his first talkie. So that's kind of a significant thing. It's the first time that people at that time had heard his voice on on film. They saw him doing his movies and stuff, but they didn't hear his voice yet. So this is his first talkie, and they got to hear his voice. His voice was kind of a little bit high pitched, but actually a good voice for comedy. So it worked out for him. Some of the stars, when they made the transition to talkies, they had really goofy sound. Maybe they were like big, serious, dramatic actors, but they had really, really silly sounding voices. You have this big, leading man, who's supposed to be a big, masculine person, and all this, and he had this big reputation in silent movies, and then they do a talkie, and he turns out, hi, talking like that. And so just totally decimated careers when they went to talkies for some of them. But Harold Lloyd made it successfully, and he's a comedian anyway, so it really didn't matter. If he sounded funny, so much the better, But so anyway, so we're going to talk about that film. I actually showed the film. It went into the public domain. I explained that on the Twitch stream last night. This thing went into the public domain on January 1st. All movies made during 1929 that were not already in the public domain went into the public domain on January 1st. And it just turns out that 1929 was a year that a lot of the big production companies and the studios and everything came out with their first talkies. There were a few before that, but that was the first year that happened. So it's kind of cool that we've got movies out there now that are in the public domain that are talkies. So we can stream them all we want on YouTube and Twitch and all these different streaming video sites. So that's kind of cool, and that's what I did. So I streamed it last night on Twitch, but I got kind of a late start on Twitch last night. It was getting after midnight by the time we finished up. By the time the movie finished up, so I didn't have time to really talk about it. I didn't want to stay on another couple hours talking about the film, so I'm going to do that tonight. So we can talk about that. If I can figure out how to get that up on my screen here, then we'll actually talk about the film. So what I want to do is bring it up here. I actually I wanted to do some research beforehand. Unfortunately, didn't have that. I had too much stuff going on today, so I didn't do a lot of research. I did double check some dates as far as when movies and talkies and all that kind of, when they first started and all that. So I can talk about that with some authority. No, but I didn't research a lot about Harold Lloyd and this particular movie and stuff like that. But a lot of it is obvious anyway. I mean, if you watch the movie and you understand the stuff a little bit, then you can figure it out. So we can discuss that. If you haven't seen the film already, if you're watching live, I'll show a little stuff. There are no spoilers in this movie. Everything's pretty obvious. You know what's going on right from the start of the movie. You know what's going to happen. So there are no real spoilers in it. But if you're watching it on the VOD, if you're watching this presentation on the VOD, it might make sense to watch the movie ahead of time. Maybe not. I don't know. This should work even without that. All right, so let me see if I can bring up this film here, and we'll talk about it a little bit. All right, there's the film, and let me see if I can put my mug up there too, so it looks so we can. There we go. Okay, so now we can. Now I can talk about it, and so I'll fast forward through here. Oh, I want to see if we got audio on this thing. I'm still getting the technicals figured out here, so Let's see. All right, I don't know if we got audio or not. It's going to take me 30 seconds to know if this worked or not. All right, so let's start. Let's start with the with who was in the movie. Interesting thing about these early films, they put the credits at the beginning of the film instead of the end. You know, movies nowadays, right? They say maybe the movies will maybe say the title of the film, or they'll say you know. You know, the director or the company that made it or whatever at the beginning, but mostly they put the credit roll at the end of the film. And the credit rolls today are just, I mean, I've seen credit rolls go 20 fucking minutes. Oh, I'm not supposed to say fucking on YouTube, sorry. I see them go 20 effing minutes on these movie credit rolls at the end of the thing. It's just it's absurd. You know, they're crediting the catering people and everything. It's silly. So this is it. This page, this is almost the whole thing right here. Let me see here. Let's see what they got here. They got. Here, I'll just play it. All right, this. So they got the director. Okay, wrote it, production manager. So they got a few credits here in the beginning. So they got quite a few credits in here. The early silent movies, they hardly put anything. They just had the players and that's it. Oh, this here, technical director, art director, sound technicians. That was a big deal, right? This is these are the talkies. So the sound was a big deal. Sound was a real big deal for these guys. And Western Electric was like the company that did sound. And sound, you know, was not, you know, to do sound was a big deal. I mean, it took took a whole team of people and tons of equipment, and everything was tubes. You know, it was all done by tubes, and these huge microphones, and you know, it was really difficult to do sound back then. It was. I mean, it's hard to get sound right, you know, in a film today, but I mean, back then it was really an accomplishment to get the sound. And I don't know. That was something I wanted to look at to see how much sound editing they did on these things. I think they did it basically live when they were filming the thing. When you hear some of the sound effects that are done in this film, I think those are live. I think there's somebody standing off screen, off camera, who is making noises while they're actually filming it. I think that's how they did it. Maybe they were editing it by then. I don't know. But anyway, Western Electric was the big company. They did all the big films. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, the players. So we got Harold Lloyd, Barbara Kent, and these other guys. And you know, an interesting thing about this is that when film first started, they call them teleplays, or you know, oh God, what was the name? It was basically they were thinking that they were going to make a play that was recorded. So you see a lot of the really early stuff like around 1900 or so, is basically a camera pointed at a stage and actors acting just as if they were doing a stage play, a live stage play in a theater, a theater or something, and they just recorded it with the camera. And then after a while, they figured, hey, we can move the camera around, we can do close-ups and blah blah blah, you know. And they started adding all this stuff. But that mindset that it was a play was kind of in there, and the first exhibitions of moving pictures were done in theaters, you know. So and they would combine them with live theater. They would take a film that they had, and it was usually just like 10 minutes or something. They're really short, and they would have a play or vaudeville or whatever, just some kind of live performance, magic act, who knows, and then in that live play, they'd say, "Hey, we're going to play a movie now," and they'd play this movie, and then they'd have a pianist or an organist or something playing music in the background while they played this silent movie, and that would kind of be part of the live thing. As the films got longer and longer, then it became, the movie became the big deal, and then eventually they had dedicated theaters that were dedicated for playing movies, because playing a movie is a little bit different. You gotta have the theater designed for the acoustics. You gotta have make sure that the projector can project the image onto the screen without hitting the heads of the people that are in the audience. So they had to design it, a certain slope and stuff of the theater. And the projectors made a whole bunch of noise. So when they got to doing talkies, they didn't want the projector noise in there, so they put the projector in a separate booth back at the back. So there are a lot of things that went into the design of theaters. And anyway, so that's kind of how it developed. And so the idea that they would put the when you go to a theater, right, you get the little theater program that has all the credits in it, right, at the beginning of the show. And that's kind of how they were thinking here. They were thinking, okay, the credit roll for a movie is basically the program that you get at a live theater play. That's kind of how that was the thinking. And eventually it just became putting the credit roll at the beginning sometimes would spoil the movie, because maybe they had a cameo, or they had some actor that appeared as a surprise in the thing, or the name, or maybe the name of the character might give away the plot or something like that. There were things like that would kind of mess up the movie, so they moved the credits to the back of the thing, or at least most of them. All right, let me play more of this here. Okay, that was it then. All right. So I'm sure this totally blew the audience away. Haven't I? That's kind of a big dramatic thing for audience. Yeah, that in there. Okay, so he starts out, and he's.
I'm a student of botany also.
All right, there's some hidden meaning here. This flower thing, if you saw this. All right, I'll skip that. Okay, so Harold Lloyd, his movies were comedies. Almost all of them. I think all of them, maybe. And they were stunts. He would do a bunch of different stunts. Now he's getting a little bit older here. I don't know how old he was. He must have been in his 30s or something here. So he was probably doing less physical comedy in this. And I noticed the stunts he did here were not as dramatic and dangerous and stuff as he did in his earlier silent films. So that's probably a reflection of him just getting older. You can see some of these little stunts that he did. You hear that sound? You could hear the checkers. So that was pretty good. They must have had a mic hidden right on the table there. And no, this is silly. Right? Watch what he does here. All right, so that's you get the idea, right? So okay. Now this is one of the cool things about watching these old movies is the technologies. Looking at the old technology in the film. In this one, they highlight photo booths. I didn't realize that they had photo booths. Well, this isn't actually a booth, but it's an instant photo machine. In 1929, I didn't know they had that. That's pretty amazing. And so they got this little photo machine, and the woman goes and takes her photo first. Let me see here. So she takes her photo first, right? and it doesn't come out. Her photo doesn't come out. And then Harold Lloyd comes and he takes his photo. But when it comes out, it's got both their pictures on it. Right? I thought they showed it here. Come on. There we go. All right. There we go. All right. So what happened here? The way photos used to be taken by cameras is there'd be a film, celluloid or whatever, some sort of substrate that they put chemicals on that are sensitive to light. Then they would expose it to light, and usually it would be a negative. It would produce a negative of the image, and then they'd have to take that clear plastic thing that had a negative image on it, and then they'd lay it on top of a piece of paper that also had chemicals on it, and then shine a light through that, and then it would make a positive print. These instant things, somehow they got a positive print from the light. I'm not sure how they did that technically. But what happened here is she went to take her picture on this machine, and it did what's called a double exposure. It exposed her picture onto the material, onto the film, print or film, where make the image, and it didn't come out. It didn't, for some reason, it just stayed there. And then Harold Lloyd's character came by. He took his picture, and it imaged it onto the same piece of print. And for him, it came out of the machine. And apparently somehow it came out in a little disc like that. That would be interesting to research that. I don't want to do that. It'd be kind of boring for me to do that on stream here. The stream's boring enough already. But anyway, that's why it had both their pictures on that thing. So that might be confusing to people to understand how that could happen. But it could happen. I mean, technically, I could imagine that would be something that would happen. It would do a double exposure, do her first and him second. So that happened. Okay, here's a telegraph. This is how they used to communicate back then. They'd go into an office like this. And this, by the way, when they produced this, all this was done in a studio, I'm almost sure. This right here, all this stuff, this is all a studio. A studio lot somewhere where they actually did this stuff. I don't think they did this in a location. So that you'd go into a telegraph office and say, I want to send a telegraph to so and so in this town, so she did that. She wrote a little letter and handed it to the telegraph guy, and you could hear the telegraph in the background. That was something. There was probably somebody off camera there making those little that telegraph noises. So this lady writes her letter to her aunt, and the guy says, okay, it's 50 cents or whatever, and then he would tap out all this stuff, and it would be sent to that town, and then the telegraph office in that town would record the Morse code that this guy was sending and see that it was supposed to be delivered to this person at this address, and then they would print out exactly that letter and then hand deliver it to the lady that she was trying to communicate with, and that's how they would do. That was the fastest communication they could do at this time. I don't think they had a long distance telephone at this time. They were getting telephones in some places, but in 1929, right, railroad was still a big deal. Cars had just come out at the beginning of the century, so yeah, a lot of people were starting to get cars instead of horses. So that was another thing. Let's see, telegraph. What else? What else they have in here? Yeah, electricity. That was something I did look up. At this time, they said about 70% of households in 1929 had already gotten electricity. So that was kind of cool. So they were starting to get electricity.
Hot box? Oh, we'll be up in a minute. Well, we're late again.
I mean, the changes that were happening at this time in the world were just incredible. Some of the stuff that was going on.
Maybe 2 hours, maybe 2 minutes.
You know, cars, switching from horse and carriage to cars was such a huge change. Plus, they had the light, they had electricity, they had phones coming out, they had, radio had just come out a couple decades before this. And now you've got moving pictures and moving pictures. I mean, imagine society was really struggling to absorb all this change at this time. And it was a lot of the progressive movement was spawned by a lot of those changes. A lot of people were losing their jobs and getting displaced and blah, 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 all that. The changes that happened with disruptive technologies. Basically what's happening right now. So we can learn a lot from history by looking at this stuff, what's going on, what happened at this time. Now here's an interesting thing. Okay, so here's the you got Harold Lloyd as the protagonist and Barbara Kent. All right, so her car broke down, right? Let's see if I got this here. Sorry about flipping around here. All right, so there's her car. It's an old car, and cars used to break down all the time. You know, if you were going to make a road trip, she was driving from somewhere to California. I don't know where she was driving from there, but it was a long trip, right? And it was virtually impossible to make a long trip without your car breaking down a few times on the way. That's just the way cars worked. And so she's trying to repair her car, and she's dressed in overalls and a cap and all that. And Harold Lloyd, when he meets her, right? This is the same woman who he had his picture accidentally taken with, but he doesn't know that here, right? And I mean, there's so much going on here that we can learn about the attitudes of people towards gender and gender identity and all that, just from this thing, what they were thinking back in 1929 from this film. First of all, you got to suspend disbelief to believe that this character, Harold Lloyd's character, did not notice that this was a woman, right? In the movie, he doesn't realize she's a woman. He thinks that she's a boy or a man. I'm not sure which, but you got to suspend disbelief. Of course, he would have noticed, but in the movie he didn't, and the audience knows, right, that this is a woman who's dressed in overalls and a cap, and she realizes that he doesn't know that she's a woman, and she plays along. So she plays along as if she is a man for him, and it's just so stuff that, the attitudes were so different back then, just completely different. The gender identities, the way that men treated women, of course, was not. I mean, women just had gotten a vote just a decade before this movie came out, so that tells you where what was going on then. But it was this was a progressive period, progressive in terms of for the time, things were progressing very quickly. Technology was changing, and attitudes toward women was changing quite rapidly. So women had just gotten a vote, and they were getting, starting to get into jobs and positions and stuff that were historically only men. So a lot going on here that you can learn by watching this. And I'm sure people who are specialists in studying gender can pull a lot out of this film by watching what Harold Lloyd was thinking. Really, this is what's going on. Harold Lloyd and the writer of this film were thinking about gender identity and stuff. So, yeah, a lot going on there.
Hello, Bill.
And so she starts playing along like she's a.
Where did you get that?
Not,
My girl. You know?
so not only does he not notice that she's a woman, he doesn't even recognize that she's the one in the photo. So, yeah,
That's
kind of stupid. All right, so that's the whole thing, right? That's throughout this section of the movie.
Well, now what's the matter?
I don't know.
And
Well, where do you expect to get with this thing?
San Francisco. Maybe I better get out and practice.
You're right.
right, this is interesting. This guy just pulls up, right? They're broken down. And he pulls up and he says, "Hey, you need some help?" Yeah, we don't know what's going on. He said, "Did you check to see if you ran out of gas?" And apparently they had not. And so he just gave him some gas, and that was, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's so nice of you." And he says, "Yeah, well," he says, it's assumed that if you see somebody broken down or out of gas, you stop and give them gas. That's the way. That's the courtesy of the road. That's what he said when he was leaving here. Let's see if I'll play that. So he asked me to check gas. You have gas. They get a little tank there. Look at that gas tank. They fill it up. And let's see here if he's.
Thank you very much. Quite all right. Courtesy of the road. Oh, yes, sir.
Courtesy of the road, yeah, see? Oops, let me see. I'm going faster. So, yeah, that's the way it used to be. If somebody was out of gas on the side of the road, you stop and give them gas, I did that once. When I was years and years and years ago, when I was like in my teens, that happened once. I brought some gas to somebody who I didn't even know, and it was just like expected, If you knew if somebody was in trouble, on the road, you stop and help them. Especially when the cars were always breaking down,
All right.
All right, let's see if we got anything else going on here. Oh yeah, here she did a cool stunt here. This is kind of a cool stunt. I watch her. Whoops. Ooh. She almost didn't pull her arm in quick enough to get run over there. So that was a little stunt there. And she did it herself. That wasn't a stunt lady.
Why don't you look where you're walking?
Stuntman, whatever.
Get these things. Put your plan.
All right, and she's doing all kinds of stuff that another thing here. They were overemphasizing strength between men and women, right? There's not that much difference between men and women. There's a huge overlap. There are a lot of men that are weaker than women. I'm an old man. I'm probably, most women are probably stronger than I am. But in this movie, they were playing that up. In fact, there was a phrase for a long, long time that was used, probably up until even into the beginning of the 21st century, where women were referred to as the weaker sex, quote unquote weaker sex. And of course, that's not used anymore, because it's derogatory to women. But they really played that up. A lot of these stunts were about how weak she was compared to him. And also the way he treated her. Part of the deal there with men, women having their freedoms restricted and everything, was that men kind of agreed, okay, women would be
Now come over there. Get up from there. Get up.
treated
What do you want to do? Keep pulling
with
that
more
steak
respect
out?
than men in terms of,
Where's your steak?
opening a car door for them, open a door for them.
Oh, you haven't even got a steak.
not hitting them. That was the thing all the time. Was if there's a saying that said never hit a woman or a man wearing glasses. That was the thing. I mean, you should never hit anybody, right? But that was the thing. Never hit a woman, right? That was kind of thing. And anybody who hit a woman was a pariah in society. But it was okay to hit a man, apparently. So anyway, that was so throughout this thing, he's kicking her and abusing her and doing all this stuff, which is over the top. But he was doing it as if she was a man or a boy. And yeah, and this time it was apparently okay for men to hit kids, abuse children, So I don't know if he thinks that she is a man or a boy. I'm not really sure. But anyway, he was kicking her and just doing all kinds of abusive stuff to her.
Well, what are you standing there for?
Thinking
Get
that
over there. What's the matter with you?
Go
on, now, get over and get that cart.
Thinking that she was
Make it snappy.
a man. Which is just completely weird. And she's struggling. Look, I mean, she can't even open it. Right. They're showing her not. So yeah, a lot of BS gender stuff here about the attitudes back then. Oh, okay. Then she gets okay. So here's where he finds out that she's a woman, and then he thinks back. At how he abused her, and he felt guilty about it, and he ran away. He was embarrassed and guilty, and he ran away. See?
Wait! Don't go!
And that was kind of interesting. That little thing where they did a dissolve. He looks out into space there, and then they do a dissolve. There's flashback. That was kind of. That wasn't like implied. That was something that developed. How films have their own narrative language that they use in terms of techniques. A fade. Fade out, fade in means changing another to another place or time, and all these things that film uses in order to convey things to the audience. And so this idea of doing a flashback was kind of one of those things that had developed, and this was like one of the earlier uses of that. If you look at films like the silent films in very like a 1900 to 1905 or something like that. If they had to do a flashback, they would put a little title up there and say, "Okay, we're flashing back," to kind of tell the audience what was going on, because the audience had never seen, a lot of them had never even seen motion pictures before, so they didn't understand that stuff. But here, this is like 2-3 decades into it, and so that was a part of the language that they. The narrative language that film would do, that cinema would use to convey a flashback, was to use a dissolve. So, anyway, that's kind of interesting. All right, so let's see what else we got here. That was kind of cruel. Making that cow pull the car like that, and then bumping the car into the back of the cow. That was, pretty abusive.
Get up there.
That's not very nice at all.
There's a little cow power. How long do you think it'll take you to fix this car?
No, how long you got?
Okay, and then he finds out that his train is just leaving for some reason, and he's too stupid to stay and get her information or whatever.
Be careful there. Goodbye,
Oh,
Billy.
this is kind of interesting, actually.
Goodbye.
Okay, so he wants to find out. He says, he's taken off going to California, and he wants to meet her there. She's going to take her car there, and he realizes he doesn't have her address or her contact information where she's going to be in California. So he shouts to her, "Where are you going to be? What's your deal?" And as she's trying to tell him, a whistle goes off. The train whistle, I guess. Here,
Oh,
I'll
say!
play it, see.
What's your last name? Quiet.
See, that was used famously in a what was it? The Marlon Brando movie. What was the name of it? I forget. But that technique was borrowed from this, and I don't know. It was probably borrowed from somewhere else. I don't know. Actually, this is one of the first talkies, so this may have been the first time they had done that trope, where they have, somebody asks somebody something, and then when they're trying to answer, a whistle goes off or whatever, so they can't hear them. This may have been the first use of that. I'm not sure,
I can't hear you.
but that's kind of interesting. So he's trying to get her. All right, what do we got? Oh, and this. Okay, now this is kind of interesting here. This is in California, San Francisco Police Department, and when I review a film, when I do a regular review of it, I like to talk about inclusion and representation and gender, like I just talked about, and race. This one has some stuff in it about race, and Harold Lloyd was actually a progressive guy. He was fairly progressive. He was inclusive. He included people of color in his movies. A lot of filmmakers did not do that, or if they did, they would do it in a derogatory manner. Now, when you look at these old movies, the way they're depicted here appear to us to be derogatory, but at the time they were not. He was not trying to be derogatory. And this movie is a big part of the plot of this film is around Chinatown in San Francisco and the drug trade, the opium trade at the time from China. And so there's a lot of that going on. But it's amazing that, I'll play this scene here, that they show the police department here is showing great reverence towards this Asian man, this guy from Chinese American man, and they're showing him reverence here and saying, "Oh yes sir, well, So that's pretty amazing. You'd be hard pressed to see that in a lot of films today, that they would do that. So. Yeah, Harold Lloyd was very progressive in his treatment of people of color and stuff. So I'll play this thing. You can see it. Listen to it here. So.
I've been here many, many times. I only went here this. There never was a time more trouble, more killing in Chinatown than there's now. And Captain Walton, all the good I can do with my clinic is upset by the dope ring led by the dragon. And I don't like it.
Oh, doctor, just a moment. Did you read the morning paper? I think you'll find that very interesting.
That's a fine.
This backing by the new police commission will enable me to force this department to get the results that we are fighting for.
Well, Mr. Thorne, I'm doing everything within my power.
Yeah, but that is not enough. Now, there.
Okay, so yes, either the Asian guy is important in the Chinese community there in San Francisco, and he's going to the police and complaining about the situation, and the police are being very respectful, and so it's quite amazing. Now, another interesting thing is this guy in the background there, Thorne. He is depicted as a Southern guy, right? Somebody from the South. Let me see if I can find a better picture of him here. All right, so he's got. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah. He's depicted as somebody from the South.
For absolute.
So he's got a white hat and a cane.
Good morning.
And he's talking like someone from the South. And it's interesting that Harold Lloyd was progressive, and he was a Republican. And back then it was different. The parties were switched. The Republicans were the progressive ones. The Republicans that wanted to advance civil rights and obviously, right, Lincoln, right. The Republicans were the ones who were on the side of the North and against the Confederates who were trying to keep slavery. The Republicans didn't want slavery. They got rid of slavery, and they wanted to advance rights for black people. And people in the South were the opposite. People in the South wanted slavery. They wanted to keep black people back. They were members of the KKK. Those were the Democrats. The Democrats were the ones who were the members of the KKK. They were the ones who wanted to keep the black people oppressed. And so Harold Lloyd made the evil guy, the criminal here, a Southern guy. So so this is like a knock against people from the South, showing this guy like this, with this guy with the white hat and the cane and all that. And what's really interesting is I think he was generally knocking people in the South, or people, because people of the South were at this time. I mean, there was a lot of terrorism that was going on, lynchings. I mean, it was really bad on this time, and so Harold Lloyd was kind of knocking people from the South in this film, and saying how backward they were and how evil they were, or whatever, And I think he was also knocking. There was another guy who was making films at this time called Buster Keaton, and Buster Keaton was from the South. I think he was from the South. I'm going to look this up real quick here. All right, this might take a second here, so I'm going to try to look this up because I want to get this information accurate. I want to see if this was actually, if he is from the South. All right, Mr. Keaton. There he is. All right. Okay, early life. Kansas. Okay, he was born in Kansas, so kind of the South. All right. A small town. His father. Okay, so he did vaudeville. Okay, and vaudeville was a lot of vaudeville was racist, and that's where blackface came from. Okay. That's where Buster Keaton was. So his father. I'm trying to read this very quick. Okay. So yeah, he was. I'm trying to read this real time here. All right, so yeah, Buster Keaton was more of a had a more racist attitude, basically. than Harold Lloyd. Harold Lloyd was more progressive. Keaton was more, you know, against. And in fact, some of his films, he would star as the protagonist in his film, and he would be a Confederate soldier. There was one film where he was a Confederate soldier, very, very big film that he made. Buster Keaton made, where he was a Confederate soldier, and he was playing the good guy. So I think this character here that Harold Lloyd put in his film here, with the white hat and the cane, you know, being a Southern guy, was not only a knock at Southern people generally. I think it may have been a knock against Buster Keaton, who was Harold Lloyd's competitor in film, you know, competitive filmmaker at the time. So anyway, that's something that was going on. Let's see what else we got here. So yeah, and the bad guy was actually is playing the dragon, which I think is like a kind of a not so disguised way of saying Grand Dragon or whatever, you know, in the KKK, you know, and this outfit is almost, I mean, if this was white, he would look like he was KKK, right? So I think that's what's going on here. It's kind of a disguised way of, you know, saying, hey, this guy's KKK doing these awful things, you know. I think that's what's going on here. I don't think that, you know, there were a lot of members of the KKK, and people were supportive. You know, a huge proportion of the population was supportive of the KKK. We had Birth of the Nation that had come out just a decade or so before this, a couple decades ago before this. Birth of the Nation was a very racist silent film that depicted the KKK favorably, and it was popular. People liked that racist film. So there was a lot of racism going on at that time. You know, we fought the Civil War, and we won. The North won. But you know, I don't know. You guys know the history, right? We fought the Civil War. At the end of the Civil War, we won against the South, but Kennedy was shot, and then they screwed up Reconstruction and didn't really wipe out the attitude, the racist attitudes in the South. I'm sure if Lincoln wouldn't have been shot, if he would have managed Reconstruction, it would have turned out a lot differently. That racism wouldn't have lingered, you know. So anyway, so that's what was going on there, and I think he, instead of, you know, he kind of did this in a symbolic or metaphorical way, saying that this guy's the KKK, to try to get that attitude out to people in a coded way like this, rather than, you know, if he would have said, here's this KKK, an evil guy, then he would have lost, you know, a third or half of his audience. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So he did it in this coded way, where he made this Southern guy, you know, this you know, very bad. but he didn't do it he didn't actually come out and say he was KKK. And he also said it in Chinatown rather than, you know, against black people. So it was kind of it was just a coded way of nudging attitudes against the KKK and against you know, the attitudes that were around at that time. So it's actually a pretty clever way of doing it, you know. Let's see what else we got here. Oh yeah, they have this whole thing about.
Pick him up, boys. Get over it.
Okay, this is stupid. Well, something here that I thought was really funny. You know, you see on
Oh, if we'd have been 5 minutes later, that guy that had...
on films today, you know, they depict pretty accurately the way police handle suspects, criminal suspects and stuff, and how careful they are, and all that kind of stuff. And here's this guy they got him handcuffed in the front. They got a gun sitting on the table in front of him, you know, and they bring him into the captain's office. You know, it's silly, you know. I don't know if they maybe they did that. Maybe they were that lax about the way they handled criminal suspects. I don't know. But today, of course, it's completely different, you
First
know.
National Bank in his hip pocket.
Is that so?
And the guy just says, "Oops, okay."
Pick him up, boys. Get over it. Come on, turn around.
So, all right, that's silly. And then they have a little gag there where
Here.
he pretends
Oh,
like
it's
he has a
him.
gun. Oh, and then they have this whole thing here where they do fingerprints. Where is it? Yeah, here, where they have to explain to the audience how fingerprints work. I don't know. That's another thing I could research here is when fingerprints started being used in crime. Let me look that up here really quick. Let's see, history. All right. Why do we not have this here? History. Okay. Okay. Okay, so they're, I guess 17th, 18th century they were trying to use in historic studies. Let's see here, crime, 20th century, 19th century. Okay, so they were talking about fingerprints for a long time. Okay, it says up until early 1890s, police forces in the United States and on the European continent could not reliably identify criminals to track their criminal record. Okay, so they weren't using fingerprints then. So fingerprints were kind of a new deal then in terms of crime fighting. So yeah, people obviously knew what a fingerprint was, but in terms of being able to use it in crime and all that kind of stuff, fingerprint analysis. Okay, here we go. 1892. It says this is the first known murder case to be solved using fingerprint analysis. Was in 1892. So it was a pretty new thing. So in this film here, they go through this exposition almost for the audience, explaining how fingerprints work. So I thought that was kind of interesting in this film. We don't need to show that. I guess we can just go through that. All right, let's see what else we get in here.
Eat all of it.
Oh, and then
Rome was
and here and here again, man, he's got this guy with his white southern hat, right? The bad guy, the southern guy, and he's making him look real silly here by taking his fingerprint and taking it off his hat. Oh, and I kind of messed that scene up here. Look at this. Watch this. He cuts the hat, and when they cut it, they didn't cut it all the way through, and he tries to pull out the little slice there, and it got hung up, and then they had to cut the film at that point, so they couldn't show that. Watch this. That's a mistake they made.
Rome wasn't
Watch
built
this.
in a day. You're not interested in Rome, Captain. It is San Francisco that...
See how he didn't cut it all the way, and then he goes up, he tries to grab it, and they had to cut away because he couldn't pull it out. I thought that was kind of interesting. A little mistake they had to cover up for.
Well, young man, if you ever get my fingerprints, I'll eat my hat.
Well, you won't eat all of it.
Now, Captain, as I was saying, my situation...
So they make the guy look silly. Okay. All right. All right, there's
That's
some
all right.
things that seem kind of racist here when they're talking about chop suey and laundries and stuff like that. You know, stereotypes, Asian stereotypes. At the time, it was not seen that way at all. He also made a comment in here about all Chinese look alike, right? Which is offensive to say that about any ethnic group. But at the time, it was not. That phrase, all X look alike. That was like in common language, and nobody thought that was offensive until probably, I don't know, late 80s or 90s, 1980s, 1990s, something like that. It became to be offensive, seen as offensive. So when we watch these films, these old films, you have to be careful of that and realize that the things that they're saying there were not meant to be offensive at the time, even though they are today.
Hey,
I'm sorry, miss.
that's all right. You can't hurt this old tin can.
All right, so he finally finds her, and let's see what else we got here. Big fight. So that was really the limit of his stunts. He didn't. I mean, some of the stuff he used to do, he used to hang off the side of buildings and do just all kinds of really dangerous stunts. And this movie here is basic fight scenes and pretty basic stuff. Let's see what else we get here. Okay, this is kind of silly.
There's your half. There's yours. Simple, isn't it? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so and just in case people didn't get the Solomon reference there, the cop says it explicitly.
Hey, Chief, you're as wise as King Solomon. Say, how do you...
Yes, right. That's a good, silly little stunt there. Skit. All right. This scene here, I saw somebody write up about this. All right, I'm gonna play this scene here. And you'll see what's going on. I'm gonna play it through, and I'm gonna talk about it a little bit. So let me play it through.
Oh, yes, the old trombone. And the piccolo.
Say, don't touch. How much? I'll buy one. No. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I'll take one of their... Say, wait a minute. Now, listen. You gentlemen are businessmen, aren't you? I want to buy the plant. Well, I'll buy it. Here. Look, see? There's money. It's good money. Here, that's money. I'll take this. Here, look. See? Money. There.
Okay, so right, he's just right. What's going on there is those guys, the Chinese guys, were smuggling heroin or opium in those potted plants, and he wanted to buy the plant, not knowing that there was drugs in them, and they didn't want to sell them. Right? They didn't want to lose their opium, but he wanted to buy one of the plants because he's a flower guy. He likes plants and flowers, and he does that little stunt where he throws the money on the ground, and the people look at the money, and then he grabs the pot and runs away. And that's kind of you see that all the time. That's a trope in film, is throwing money out on the ground in order to distract people or to get people to run out, so that the guy who threw the money out can accomplish something. That's a trope in movies now. And what else? A little bit more background. Yeah, Harold Lloyd, he was for rights. He wanted to give people more rights. He wanted to extend rights to more people. And after this was back in 29, but communism was kind of happening right around the globe. Eventually, communists took over China, and Harold, communism was against rights. They say they were for people, but they took away rights. They took away people's freedoms, and that happened wherever communism was happening. It was they were hardliners. They would take people's rights away, and so Harold Lloyd, being one who advocated for freedom and for expanded rights, he was anti-communist, or became anti-communist at some point. And in China, after the communists took over in China, later in the 80s, I think it was, or something like that, 70s or 80s or whatever, they had their own, the press. There was no free press. It was all run by state-run media, right? And they one of their propaganda outlets apparently mentioned this film and said that Harold Lloyd was being racist against Chinese people. And the reason they did that is because they didn't like Harold Lloyd because he's anti-communist. And so they made up this story about Chinese people being offended by that scene. And there was nothing to be offensive about that scene that I saw. It was just a gag. It was a comedy gag, and it was just nothing offensive there. But the communist propaganda paper, made up this big story about Harold Lloyd being racist against Asian people because they didn't like Harold Lloyd because Harold Lloyd was anti-communist. And that's the opposite of what it is. Harold Lloyd was a progressive, and he was including people of color and stuff in his film. So anyway, so if you hear about that somewhere, about Harold Lloyd, about that situation, this is what happened here. It's a propaganda thing from the 80s when state-owned media was putting out propaganda against anti-communists. Little factor. All right, so he gets away with his flower. And this. So this guy at the beginning, remember this Asian guy at the beginning of the thing, he's a doctor. And in fact, if you read at the very beginning, the reason why she went out there was to find this doctor. He's a famous doctor, apparently, well known enough that she traveled all the way out there for him to look at her son here who has some sort of disease. And the doctor's supposed to take care of it. And something really interesting, I don't know if it's this scene or not. Let me see here. Let me look real quick here. All right, so all right, something really interesting here. The way they handled this, her son is like potentially terminally ill. And the way she is talking about it is like, oh, gee, good thing my son didn't die. It's just the attitude, the tone was totally wrong here. Let me play this. I'll play this whole section here.
That's a rare Chinese plan.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Harold, this is Dr. Gao, Mr. Bledsoe.
Glad to know you, Doctor.
Happy, I'm sure.
Harold, the doctor says he's going to have Buddy up and around in no time.
Oh, that's great. Well, then there is a chance, Doctor.
Oh, yes. Tomorrow, we'll tell the story. If everything goes right, he will be well and strong again.
Isn't that great, though? And the doctors back home said there wasn't a chance.
What did they know about it? Hello there, old-timer. What do you think?
So her you know, her son's life is in the balance, and she's like, oh, you know, the other doctor said he didn't have a chance at all. He was going to die. And this doctor says he's got a 50-50 chance. Isn't that great? You know, it's just, the tone was just totally screwed up there. And I think that's just filmmaking. You know, I think, you know, every female who has offspring feels for their, at least mammals feel for their kids, you know, and it was just played wrong there, misdirected, I think.
I think I've got for you.
All right, so let's see what we got here. So anyway, what's going on here? I don't know if it was clear enough in the movie, but this doctor, right, is supposed to be caring for their kid. That's what they're trying to get across here. And it didn't really come across totally here. So this doctor is, you know, is supposed to be taking care of their kid, and a doctor gets kidnapped, and they're not only they're concerned for the doctor, but they're also concerned that the doctor won't be able to take care of the kid, right? So that's kind of what was going on there. I don't know if it was clear in the movie. Okay, another stupid stunt here with the dishes. All right, let's see. Okay.
The matter, Ken?
So he goes back into the where the bad guys are, their hideout or whatever, and is going to try to find the doctor. Right? That's his thing. And there's just a whole bunch here where he's just a bunch of gags where he's just getting into fights and doing a bunch of gags. Firecrackers. Let's see what else we got here.
Wait, you hurt, Chief? What's happened?
Yeah, it's just a very long bunch of segments here of just one gag after another, and he fights the people, and there's really not much. You know, if this movie was made today, then they would just play this up and make it this would be the action sequence, right, of the film. Let me skip through this here. All right, so he's fighting the bad guys. And it's all kinds of stuff here. I'll show you one here that's just to show you what was going on. It's that guy, Mr. And he's dressed up as Asian. I mean, today we'd say that's yellow face or whatever, you know, Asian face or whatever. This wasn't offensive at that time at all. For him to be dressed up as an Asian, that was not even a consideration that would be offensive at all at that time. Oh yeah, this is kind of silly. He gets while he's fighting the bad guy. Right, that southern guy is dressed up as this dragon, the evil leader of the bad guys, and he pushes his fingerprint onto Harold Lloyd's forehead there. I don't know if he was, you know, there's you know, the Catholic ritual of on Ash Wednesday of putting a mark on the forehead. I don't know if he was thinking about that when he did this or not. When I saw this, I was kind of reminded of that. So I don't know if he was thinking about that or not when he did this. Okay, so they make fun of him, but he actually solved the whole thing, right? realizes he's got the guy's thumbprint. Now they did another flashback here. Watch this. He sees the guy's thumbprint. I want you to do another flashback here. See? All right.
Shut up! You last time. Sit down. Get over that chair.
Out with it.
Look at
Okay, and they have so this. This kind of, I'm gonna unpack. Let me play this scene here, just, and then we'll try to unpack it.
Come on. Look out
So
there
that's the
now.
southern guy trying to stab him. He's fighting him.
you, dirty meddler. You wanted my fingerprints, and there's all 5 of them.
Let me go.
Get rid of him. And the quicker, the better.
So you want to fight me, eh? Get over there, you.
All right, so so this is the guy who's like a southern person, and he's got this black guy who is working for him, in a subordinate position. So I mean, the fact that they included a black person in the film is good, and Harold Lloyd did that. He included people of color in his films. This guy had a fairly significant part in this film. He had a lot of speaking lines. When I saw this character here, I was reminded of James Bond, where they have the evil guy has somebody who is his sidekick or whatever, who does stuff for him. They had remember Top Job in which one was that? I think it was Goldfinger or whatever. And then they had Jaws. Remember Jaws? In the guy with the big, huge, I forget the guy's name. The big guy with Jaws and stuff like that. Anyway, that's the kind of character that I got from this. But it was good that Harold included a black person in the film. He was a bad guy. He did beat up the protagonist, which was bad. But he had a lot of speaking lines. So good and bad. But they included a black person, and he got quite a bit of time in here. It's like towards the end of the movie, so it wasn't that big of a prominent character, but the guy had a lot of speaking lines and stuff like that. I mean, you'll see today in films where they will have it'll be an all-white film, and they'll have one character who is black, and they'll put that character in a subservient, as a waiter or waitress or something like that, and that's the only black person in the entire film, and the person won't even have enough lines to be a bit part, and you'll see that today even that they make films like this. So it was good that Harold Lloyd included this guy in his film, and gave him a lot of lines and stuff like that.
Now I'm gonna give you a good beating.
Okay, so they have this big fight scene here. Harold eventually.
Where is he?
Oh, this is. Here's a gag, right? I'll show you this gag here that I didn't get until when I watched the movie. I didn't understand didn't get this gag that he was doing. There's a shell there. See this shell that he's picking up? He grabs the shell several times and conks the guy in the head with the shell. And it's a conch shell. Get it? Right? Stupid humor. Alright, let's see what else we got here.
You don't want, I'll take care of you in the morning.
No, this is kind of. That's a printing press. I don't know what the symbolism is there. So they got the southern guy, and they put him in a print, and they're getting crushed with a printing press. So maybe there's some symbolism there. You know, maybe he's, you know, I don't know. I think there's a metaphor going on there, that he's crushing the southern guy with a printing press.
Owns the man you want, Captain. Here's the dragon. Yes, and you'll talk your way out of it this time.
Okay, so they're trying to catch him, of course, and blah blah blah. Harold Lloyd is the hero, blah blah blah, right?
Billy, there's something I want to ask you.
Well,
Would you, I mean, could you, that is, will you?
yes.
You will? Well, come on.
Oh, Harold, isn't this great?
Darling.
I'm so happy. This must be heaven.
Certainly is.
Okay, that idea of the film ending with the man and the woman kissing at the end, that was like almost between, you know, the 20s and 30s and into the 40s. Virtually every film that involved a male and female lead like this had to end with the man and the woman kissing. Almost every single film. It was like, you know, if a film didn't do that, then the audience was like, at the end of the film, they were like, what happened? Why didn't they kiss? You know, it was something that just every single film they did was like that. This film was a pre-code. I mean, it was before the Hays Code was implemented. But I don't think they refer to this as a pre-code film. Not really sure here. Let me look this up and see if they use the word. I'll look this up real quick here. Yeah, they call it a pre-code film. I guess so. Anything done before that, but there wasn't anything in here in this film that was risque or anything. You know, that would have been not allowed by the Hays Code, by the rules that they implemented. And at the very beginning, you see it says that it passed the. Where is it here? Let me see if they got that. I don't know. I'm gonna see if I can find that little note here, because I think it said that it passed. There it is, passed passed by National Board of Review. So they got up here, National Board of Review, American Film Industry Organization. Okay. National Board of Review. Origins. Okay. It says it has its roots, the National Board of Review has its roots in 1909. When the guy formed the New York Board of Motion Picture Censorship to make recommendations to the mayor's office concerning controversial films. So yeah, they were showing women in their underwear and stuff like that, you know, and people didn't like that. Kind of a repressed period, you know, at that time. And the 20s was kind of a liberation time generally. You know, women were not wearing bras, and they were, you know, it was a, you know, stuff was going on. Stuff was happening. People were feeling their freedom, you know, at that time. And films were reflecting that, and there were prudes who didn't like that, and they made this this National Review Board to censor films. It says producers submitted their films to the board before making release prints. They agreed to cut any footage that the board found objectionable, up to and including destroying the entire film. Wow. Yeah, it says between 1916 and 1950, it would have this little thing on here that said passed by the National Review Board, so that films would have that. It says the National Board is opposed to legal censorship regarding all forms of motion picture. It believes that far more constructive is the method of selecting the better pictures, publishing descriptive classified lists. I don't know if this is BS. So anyway, it's a censorship thing. It was a way of doing censorship, and I don't know how they ended up. This was pre-code, so they were still submitting them for censorship even before the Hays Code. But I'm not sure. This is kind of a short. I'm reading a Wikipedia article on this. They don't say much about this group. You know what leverage they had over the filmmakers, where filmmakers would agree to submit their films to this, because it was voluntary at this point. You know, Harold Lloyd didn't have to give this to the National Review Board. He could have just done what he wanted, and released the film. So I'm not sure what. You know what leverage they had over filmmakers. Maybe they cut deals with the theaters, or I don't know how they got the filmmakers to agree to submit their films. But anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting too. So this is kind of the beginning when they first started doing that. All right, so that was the film. Is there anything else? Did they have credits at the end? I don't think they did. The end. That's it. That's the end. So all the credits were up at the front. All right, so that was the film. And my 2 cents worth of what the film was about. I like the old films just to look at the old technology and stuff, and it's just, you know, and the attitudes, and try to decode what was going on. You know, when you watch these films, you should really try to study as much as you can about what was going on at the time. What was, you know, history-wise, what was happening. You know, this was after World War I. Right, so they had World War I. Things were really screwed up. The U.S. was on the side that won the war, and then things were, you know, 1919 they had the women got the right to vote. There was pushback against all the terrorism and oppression against black people by the people in the South, and racists and KKK and all that, who had you know, come to prominence after Reconstruction. You know, we fought the Civil War. Civil War got done in '65. Reconstruction amendments were what, 70, between 65 and 70, I think. And then so for a few decades there, the South was trying to gain back power and oppress black people more. And so by the turn of the century, by 1900, you know, it was pretty messed up for black people. You know, like right after the Civil War, there were black people who were elected to Congress, congressmen and senators and stuff. And then it just went bad after that. You know, they did the Jim Crow laws and just really oppressed black people for a long time there, and had terrorism, as I said, you know, lynchings and everything around this time. And so this was kind of this period here, 1929 and the 20s. You know, women got the right to vote, and there was more consciousness happening. You know, it was a progressive time, so there was pushback against the racism and stuff. And I mentioned part of that in this film, that kind of a metaphor they were doing, that Harold Lloyd was doing there against the KKK and stuff like that. So it's just interesting to understand the history when you're watching these films, to try to pick out stuff that's happening, things that's going on, and the technology. That's the other thing that I think is really cool. You know, cars and what was happening and stuff. So anyway, so that's what was happening. That was that film. So what I like to do, this is my first official stream here on as Double Tribble on YouTube. And so I think what I'd like to do is do one stream a week on Twitch, just to irritate them over there. But do most of my streams over here. And so maybe, you know, I'll do film. You know, maybe I'll show some films, or I'll review films. But I also like science and stuff like that, so I'll do science streams. I'll do, you know, I've done experiments before. I just like talking about science and things like that. And I live here in rural New Hampshire, so every once in a while I do an IRL type stuff. I've got a lot of animals around here, wild animals, and so I can show them, talk about them, a lot of stuff like that. So most of my streams I'll do here on YouTube, but once a week I'll stream on Twitch, and I'll try to see if I can figure out a regular schedule or something, so we can actually get people watching the thing live and do discussion and stuff like that, if that works. All right, well, this is the end, so I appreciate everybody for watching. What else do I have to do here? It's been a while since I've streamed, so I'm trying to get this figured out again. Right, yeah, that's it. So make sure you follow me. Subscribe, yeah. On YouTube they call it subscribe. On all the other social programs, social platforms, they call it follow. You follow a person. Here they call it subscribe for some reason. So hit subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. You just hit the subscribe button, and then hopefully they'll notify you when I do a live chat. I don't know how it works here on YouTube. A live stream rather. And if you're watching this on the VOD afterwards, make a comment, because that helps the algorithm. If you comment on my videos, that helps. But subscribe, that's the main thing, because then if you get more subscribers, then YouTube is more likely to feature the videos. All right, and every once in a while, let me promote my stuff, right? On Twitch, let's see where I'm at. I'm Double Tribble on Twitch. So you go to Twitch, TWITCH.TV. You go there and type in Double Tribble, and it should bring you to my channel. I probably have a link here on my profile on YouTube. I'm sure I've got a link there. But really, most of my stuff's going to be here on YouTube now, because Twitch doesn't like is anti-democracy now. They're against people talking about civics and stuff. A lot of the stuff that I talked about on this film, they don't like people talking about that over there. So that's kind of anti-democratic, and I'm pro-democracy. I'm not against democracy, so I don't want to support them. But I'm going to stream over there once in a while just to be on principle, just so they don't stop me from streaming. But here on YouTube, it's doubletribble-yt. And if you're watching this, then you can find that link pretty easily. And then I also do like prepared stuff. Sometimes I'll take my streams and edit them down and make an actual video, like a review or something like that of films or just BS stuff, me playing in the snow or playing with the animals or whatever around here, and I'll post that on YouTube also. And when I do that, I post it on the KXQE channel, KXQE. So if you go to YouTube and search for KXQE, that'll bring up the KXQE, and that's where my videos are, my prepared videos. So my live stuff is going to be here on YouTube on the live tab or the video tab. The video tab will have the Twitch VODs. The live tab should have my YouTube VODs. And prepared videos are on KXQE. Hope that's not too confusing. All right, so everybody, take care. Oh yeah, and make sure you wear your. We're in a pandemic, by the way. Remember, we're in a pandemic. Hundreds of people dying every day. It's very sad because people refuse to wear these. Make sure you wear an N95 mask when you go out in public. If you don't wear an N95 mask, you could be killing people. You don't want to kill people, do you? No. You're about 8 times more likely to die from not wearing an N95 mask than you are from not wearing a seatbelt. That's how important it is to wear these masks. It's very important. The mask has to say N95 on it. Has to be NTSC, or NIOSH rather, NIOSH, NIOSH, and it has to say, can you see that? It has to say NIOSH, and it has to say that it's N95. And when you wear it, you have to make sure that it makes a complete seal around your mouth. Make sure the mask has 2 straps on it like this. If it has straps that go around your ears, that's not an N95 mask, and it may not protect you as well. And this is the mask that will filter out the virus. Cloth mask or a mask that is not an N95 isn't going to filter out the virus. It's got to be N95, and you have to wear it every time you're in public. I know it's kind of a drag, having to cover up, but the reason you have to is because some assholes don't wear their masks, and they're just making the pandemic continue by doing that. If just half the people, or 80% of the people, wore N95 masks when they went out in public, it would end the pandemic. It would eliminate the virus in the U.S. and we wouldn't have to worry about it. So please wear your mask. All right, everybody, take care. Bye.